Hi everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to use Adobe Premiere Rush in order to edit your Lightboard videos to turn them into these micro lectures that I was talking about. I'll start by saying that you don't need to use Adobe Premiere Rush to make these videos. A lot of people like using Adobe Spark. Some people just use screen capture through Canvas Studio. There's the full Adobe Premiere. There's, countless programs, but I chose Adobe Premiere Rush because it's available to all the faculty here, one way or the other. If you're full-time faculty, you're provided an Adobe license, so you can download this on your home machine and, just go to town. But if you're part-time faculty, we have computers in the library that are licensed in order that you can come in and use the software if you so desire. So anyways, we'll start out by downloading the Adobe Creative Cloud, which will you might have on your computer, but this will let us download Adobe Premiere Rush. You'll Google, Adobe Creative Cloud and click on that first link and you'll come to this page, and we're going to sign in, and you'll use your school provided email address and enter your password. You'll end up on this page, and we will go to video, this little video tab here, and you see we have Premiere Rush, and we'll click Start Now to download the program. If you're using Chrome, it will download here. If you're using Edge or Firefox, you might get a pop-up, but I think it'll probably be here if you're using Chrome. We will continue. All right. All right, and it will install. This will take a few minutes, so I will get back to you when it's all done. All right, so once you have installed Adobe Creative Cloud and Premiere Rush, it will automatically open, and you will probably see something like this screen. Let's get started. So I have put together beforehand the video files from my Lightboard session, together with some images and graphics that I'm going to use in the video, and I've put them in this new video folder that's on my desktop. So here's an audio file, here's some images I'm going to use, and here are the two video files. So I'll go ahead and I'll open the first video file. I'll open both of them actually, and I will click Create down here to start my project. All right, so here is kind of your basic Premiere Rush screen. I have the two video files that I shot here, and you have like a progress bar that shows where you are in the video. Think of it as like, an old school VHS tape, all unwound, and as the video plays, it goes through the video that you shot. So the four methodological rules. We'll take a look. In part 2 of his Discourse on Method, Rene Descartes outlines 4 rules, which he argues will combine the methodological strengths of logic, geometry, and algebra, while being exempt from their faults. All right, so the first order of business that I want to do is I had some mess ups while I was recording. I'm not an actor. I don't often, lecture on things, and there was a lot of hard quotes, so I had a lot of flubs, and the first thing I'm going to do is go through this video and edit out all my flubs. So let's get going. We'll start working on this. His first rule is to, and I quote, accept nothing as true which he did not clearly recognize to be so. That is to say, carefully to avoid precipitation and prejudice in judgments, and to accept in them nothing more than what was presented to my mind so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general rule for anyone engaged in intellectual endeavor, so as you can see, I made a bit of a flub there, and that's something I want to edit out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this scissor button that I'm highlighting here to make 2 splits in the video and then delete the part that I split out. It's kind of easier to see how it's done than to have me explain it. So I'll just go ahead and do my best to edit out that flub right here, and we'll see how that works. That is to say, carefully to avoid precipitation and prejudice in judgments, and to accept in them nothing more than what was presented to my mind so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general rule for anyone engaged in intellectual endeavor, so as you can see, I made a cut. I clicked on that cut button towards where I thought the good video ended, and I made another cut right after the flub. So we'll highlight that section that I cut out, and we're going to right click and then delete it. So now we'll track back a little bit and we'll see how well the cut works. So let's play. And so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general rule for anyone engaged in an intellectual endeavor, look at that. Pretty good, huh? To kind of make it a little smoother, the next thing I'm going to do is come over to the bar. You see all of these tools. There's, adding graphics, adding effects, adding color. We're not going to get too much into that now. We just want a little transition. So I'm going to go to effects, and I'm going to take this dissolve transition. I'm going to drag it over in between that cut that I made. So now look at it. To my mind so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general rule for it, kind of cool, huh? It's a little smoother of transition. It's not strictly necessary, but I thought I'd show you just in case you want to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and we'll keep editing this clip. Anyone engaged in an intellectual endeavor, avoiding prejudices and judgment, should always be of the highest concern. The rest of the rule does not work as well as a general intellectual precept, seeing as Descartes has set the bar so high as only accepting things as true, which are clear and distinct, a concept which I will... There we go, there's another flub. Let's see where I picked up from. The rest of the rule does not work as a general intellectual precept, seeing as Descartes has set the bar so high as only accepting things as true, which are, quote, clear and distinct. More on that later. All right, I remember that was good. So it looks like I want to add from right about there, and... The rest of the rule does not work as a Okay, the rest of the rule does not work. So I will make a cut right about there. Cut. And then I'm going to scroll back a little more and see where I need to make the other cut. The rest of the rule does not work as well as a general intellectual precept. Perfect. So you can kind of see those, the audio bars kind of help below the video. And I think I'm going to make my other cut there. And this is the section that I want to get rid of. So I'll right click and then delete. And we will bring over another dissolve transition between the two sections of tape. So we'll start before any of the cuts that I made, and hopefully from what I did, we'll have a nice smooth transition between my flubs. And to my mind so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general rule for anyone engaged in an intellectual endeavor, avoiding prejudices and judgment should always be of the highest concern. The rest of the rule does not work as a general intellectual precept, seeing as Descartes has set the bar so high. Not bad, huh? Let's keep going. as only accepting things as true which are, quote, clear and distinct. More on that later. Second rule, to divide up each of the difficulties that he examined into as many parts as possible, and as seemed requisite in order that it might be resolved in the best possible manner. Again, this methodological rule works as well. Again, this method... There's a little flub. Let's get rid of that. So we'll scroll back. And I think I picked it up from again, so I'm going to wait and then pause right before there. There we go. That looked perfect. Again. Oh, a little farther back. And I think I'm comfortable making the cut there. Oh, so here's a little thing. You see that this scissor button that I used to make the cut is grayed out? It's because I have to have this section of the clip highlighted. I don't know why Adobe Premiere Rush does it that way, but for some reason you have to have the section of the clip that you're editing highlighted in order to make a cut. So I will go ahead and make the cut there, play again, and then try to make the next cut when I think it's necessary. Again, this methodological rule works as well. Again, this methodological rule... There we go. So I have that flub contained in this section of the video. I'll right-click and then delete. And then again, drag in a dissolve transition to kind of cover my tracks. Let's see how it looks. That it might be resolved in the best possible manner. Again, this methodological rule works well as a general intellectual strategy. Look at that. You wouldn't even know that I messed up. So what I'm going to do, since you've kind of got the idea on how to make these cuts for your initial edit, I'm going to take a break from recording, and I'm going to just go through the rest of the clip, making the edits as I have towards the beginning, and then come back to you when I have it all cleaned up on this like initial cleanup. All right, so I'm done with my cutting, and as you can see, I've cut a lot of it. I made quite a bit of mistakes, but it's about down to 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which is good length for a micro lecture. All right, so now it's time to add some background audio. Again, this is something, it's not strictly necessary, but it keeps the video entertaining. It keeps, the students' eyes on the video according to what some educational experts have told me. So I like adding audio. So what you'll probably want to do is click on this blue button here to add media and click on audio. And there's a big database of kind of like royalty-free background music that you can add, and also some sound effects if you wanted to explore that. But you can preview them by clicking on the play buttons. So got Afrobeat Senegalese full. Let's see what it sounds like. All right, that doesn't really fit what I got going, but you get the idea. If you wanted to go ahead and add it, you would, highlight whatever you want to add and then click add, and it will appear belowhand. Another option you have is to add your own music. Seeing as these are educational videos, they're covered under fair use doctrine. So go ahead and use that licensed music if you would like, so long as you're not making money off of it and you are using it solely for educational purposes. That's what I've done. I've done like ripped like an instrumental of like a Notorious B.I.G. song that I like, that I think fits with, Descartes enumerating his methods. And I've gone ahead and I put that together beforehand. To add it to the clip, I'll go to Sequence, Add, and then Media. And it'll open up this browser. It's already navigated to the folder that has it, but you can go from the desktop or the media browser, depending on where your file is. If it's somewhere in your C drive, you'd go to media browser, then C, but I've put mine in a folder on the desktop. So I will click, I know it's this commandments.wave, and then I will add. And as you can see, it appears below. I can already tell just by looking at the levels hear that it's going to be way too loud. If you see the levels of the audio file I just added versus the levels of the video file. So I will click on commandments, the audio file. I'm going to close this out. And I'll have to navigate to, it was already up, but I can navigate to the audio controls, and I'm going to bring the clip volume down. I think maybe like 20 will suffice. I think that'll be good. You want it a little lower than your vocal audio. So we will go to the beginning of the clip and we'll see how that works. Let's take a look and a listen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The four methodological rules. In part 2 of his discourse on method, René Descartes outlines 4 rules.
It's a little loud for my taste,
methodological
so I'm gonna bring it
strengths
down.
of logic, geometry, and algebra, while being exempt from their faults. His first rule is to, and I quote, accept nothing as true
13 sounds
which
about
he
good.
did not clearly recognize.
So let's see with that little intro how it goes. I'm going to go back to the beginning and turn this up a little bit, and we'll see how it sounds.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The four methodological rules. In part 2 of his discourse on method, René Descartes outlines 4 rules, which he argues will combine the methodological strengths of logic, geometry, and algebra, while being...
There we go. I like that. The only problem you can see is that it doesn't quite make it to the end. So our options are either to, start the clip over, or, add some maybe different background music, or just leave it blank. What I think I'll do is I will add another copy of the song that I ripped, and I can just drag it to the end, and again we'll bring the levels down to, I think it was at 16, right? 13. Bring the levels down to 13 so it sounds the same, and we'll get rid of that little ditty at the beginning so that it kind of, and you see there's some dead space at the end here. We will get rid of that and drag them together, and we'll see how that transition works. Let's see how it works towards the end when we bring these two songs together.
Insight on the problem as a whole. Descartes' final methodological rule states that he will, quote, in all...
There we go. It's not perfect, but it will suffice. We'll, also drag it so that the music ends with the clip and it doesn't just play on for, another minute after the clip's done. So there we go. We have, some background music that goes with our micro lecture that we have. And pretty much the final step we have left is to add some fun graphics. So let's see. If you were listening, there are these methodological rules that are hard to just pick up by listening to them. It's something that, if you're watching a YouTube clip on this, you might want to pause and reread exactly, verbatim what was said. So that's what I'm going to start out with, is putting up some graphics that spell out each of the 4 methodological rules. So what we're going to do is we're going to start playing, and when it comes to the first methodological rule, I'm going to pause, and then we're going to put in a graphic. So let's do it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The 4 methodological rules. In part 2 of his discourse on method, René Descartes outlines 4 rules, which he argues will combine the methodological strengths of logic, geometry, and algebra, while being exempt from their faults.
All right, I have the script in front of me, so I know that this is where I start talking, where I say the first quote of the first rule. So I've done is I've paused, and you can see where it falls on the clip. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this Add Media button again, but instead of going to audio, I'm going to go to graphics. And here you have some titles, you have transition graphics, these are some things you can mess with, but I'm keeping it real basic right now. And I'm going to go to titles, because that's, where I've had the most luck with this sort of thing. And these are all like different titles that you can add. If you had like a short quote, you could maybe use something like this, but this is a little bit longer of a quote. So the smooth text overlay might work. But here we go. Quoted. This looks like, there's quotation marks, and it looks like this will be a good one to put in because it is like a direct quote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it here. And you can see it appears above the video clips. So you can put it wherever you want, but I know that I want it where I paused in the clip. So it'll take a second for it to load in. But as you can see, when I click play, it will pop up, in its rough form, and we're going to adjust that, but you'll see.
His first rule is to, and I quote, accept nothing as true.
There you go. And you see it's only up for as long as this little square is available. But we want it to last a little longer, so we're going to drag it out so that it stays up there. And we also don't want it just right above me. We want it kind of off to the side. That was the purpose of me kind of standing, 3/4 of the way over on the screen. So what we'll do is, again, we'll make sure that this title's selected, and then we'll click on the screen, and it will let us control where we want it on the screen, and also its size. So it is a pretty big quote, so I'm going to move it here, kind of make it take up as much space as possible. And I'm going to double click so that I can type whatever I want here. And this is a long quote, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and come back to you once I have it all typed out. There we go. Check that out. I have the full quote in there. And now I'm going to double click on that quoted and change that to Rene Descartes. So that's all there is to it. Let's scroll back and, if all goes according to plan, this will pop up right when I say his first rule, and it will last for, hopefully the amount of time. And if your students want to pause the video and dissect the quote, they'll be able to do so. Let's see how it works.
Geometry and algebra while being exempt from their faults. His first rule is to, and I quote, accept nothing as true which he did not clearly recognize to be so. That is to say, carefully to avoid precipitation and prejudice in judgments, and to...
So, okay, it looks like I got that timed, not quite where I want it to be. So I'm going to move it forward a little bit, and I'm going to drag it out to where I made that edit. So hopefully that'll line up a little better. Let's take a look.
His first rule is to, and I quote, accept nothing as true which he did not clearly recognize to be so. That is to say, carefully to avoid precipitation and prejudice in judgments, and to accept in them nothing more than what was presented to my mind so clearly and distinctly that I could have no occasion to doubt it. As a general
Look at
rule...
that. Not half bad. So let's go ahead and do this for the rest of the rules. I'll walk you through doing the same thing for the second rule, and then take another break while I do the third and fourth on my own, so you guys don't get tired of watching the same thing.
For anyone engaged in an intellectual endeavor, avoiding prejudices and judgment should always be of the highest concern. The rest of the rule does not work as a general intellectual precept, seeing as Descartes has set the bar so high as only accepting things as true, which are, quote, clear and distinct. More on that later. Second rule,
There we go. So we probably want to pop it up when I throw up the deuces. We will want that second quote to pop up. So I'm going to click on quick quote and drag it over, line it up with the frame that I have paused, and looks like probably drag it out to that last edit because that's probably where I made the flub. So one more time, we will double click there and drag it so that it's not just covering me up. This one's a little shorter of a quote, so I'm moving around a bit on the screen, but I can probably have it a little smaller. We'll get it kind of in general position, and I'll double click there and then type in the rule. So there we go. There's our quote. Let's scroll back a little and see how that works.
More on that later. Second rule. To divide up each of the difficulties that he examined into as many parts as possible, and as seemed requisite in order that it might be resolved in the best possible manner. Again,
not bad. I might want to just kind of move it a little bit more over to the left, shrink it just a little bit. There we go. That looks a little cleaner. Yeah, it's not infringing on my space in the frame. And yeah, there's two quotes. I'm going to go ahead and just put in the next two on my own, and I will get back to you. All right, I have my 4 quotes in there. As you can see, I added these final 2. And now the final thing I want to do is add a couple of these graphics that I put together. Just to kind of, keep there from being too much blank space in the video. I've marked in the script where they need to go, which, the more prep that you can do before you make the video, the better it turns out. So I have kind of some pictures of the math references that I make in this video. And it looks like the first one happens after the second rule. So we will 1, 2, and we'll bring it there, and I will pause about when I think that the graphic needs to go up, and I'll show you how to
and as seemed
put it
requisite in order that it might be resolved in the best possible manner. Again, this methodological rule works well as a general intellectual strategy. Problems are most often best attacked by breaking them into discrete parts. This is obvious to anyone who's ever done mathematics, and seeing as Descartes is modeling his method on that of logic, geometry, and algebra, it makes perfect sense. For example, when finding the
So here we go. I say when finding the curvature of a function. So I will move the cursor to kind of when I gesture, and that's when I want the graphic to show up. And I'll show you from the beginning. You click on that blue Add Media, and it's My Media, so we'll click Your Media. And again, it'll bring you to this file browser. You navigate to wherever your files are located. Mine are in the desktop. New video. And here's like the formula for calculating the function or the curvature of a function. And I will just go ahead and drag it down here again to where the pause line is marked above the video, and just put it there. And we're just going to manipulate it a lot like we did the quote. So we will make sure it's highlighted down here, and then we will shrink it like so, and probably shrink it a little more and move it to where we want it. And we will, drag it out however long we want it to stay up. And that's all there is to it. So let's see how it worked. Let's rewind a little bit and we'll see how that looks.
Makes perfect sense. For example, when finding the curvature of a function, it's best to compute the necessary derivatives before computing the necessary magnitudes, as doing both at the same time would muddy the waters and make even the best mathematician prone to error.
There we go. I want it a little longer. I probably want it to when I say prone to error. So I will drag that there, and this time it will show up all the way to the end. All right, and I have, I think, 2 more graphics that I want. The next one's going to come up after when I talk about related rates problems. It is after the third rule. So I will kind of try to navigate to kind of where it starts, and I will pause right where I want it to be.
Simplest problems. Again, this can be applied easy when thinking about mathematics. When trying to solve a related rates problem.
So there we go. Related rates problem. I gesture, and here's my graphic that goes along with related rates problems. So I'll click on it. I can either click add, but I kind of prefer to drag onto the canvas where I want it to be. And I'm gonna want it to last probably until I make the cut a little bit before. And I'm gonna click on the picture up here. I'm gonna shrink it. Got some Comic Sans here, which is an abomination, but we'll ignore it for now. And I will drag it and resize it to the place I want it to be. And hopefully that'll work. Let's see how it looks.
Easy when thinking about mathematics. When trying to solve a related rates problem, once every element that will be changing has been isolated.
Not bad, huh? So I have one more graphic. I'll go ahead and just show you how to do it. And that's after the 4th rule. Here's our 4th rule. And I will pause when I want to add the graphic.
Enumerate your suppositions and results.
Right here. This is right where I want to add it. You can see in the tape, I have it here. Check and recheck. I will drag it onto the canvas right where I've made the pause. It's giant, so I'm going to make sure it's selected here. I'll click on the screen. I will resize and then move it. And this one looks like it doesn't need to be around as long, but I will stretch it out a little bit. So let's take a look at how it looks.
Enumerate your suppositions and results. Check and recheck your thinking. Omit nothing. These are Descartes' 4 methodological rules he embraced.
So that's all there is to it. I have a micro lecture prepared, ready for export, ready to be uploaded to Canvas or YouTube. I will show you the final step on how to, condense it all into one just MP4 video that can be uploaded to Canvas. Now that everything's done, we'll go to File. We will click Share right there. There we go, popped up. And you can go directly to YouTube or Facebook or Insta through Rush, but we're just want to save it locally, which means save it to the hard drive on your computer to where you want it to be later. So we'll change the file name to Descartes. Look, it's about 1,000 megabytes, about a gig, which is not too bad for a video of that size, an HD video of that size. It's 3 minutes long. You can preview it here if you want to, but once you rename it, it'll save to the C drive. For me, it's C users libtech documents, but you can click there and change it to wherever you want to save it to. This is fine for me. So I will go ahead and click export, and it's gonna render and export into an MP4 file that is ready to upload. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. The program might seem a little difficult. It's, I think, easily the best one of these simple video editing programs that I've used. I, made a point to test out as many as I could. This is not perfect, but it's by far the simplest one that still functions how it needs to. Remember that if this is something you'd like to do, I'm always available for one-on-one tutorials for any of the faculty who's interested. I'm up in the library, and I feel like I know the program pretty well by now. So if you want to schedule Lightboard time, or if you would like, a personal lesson on Premiere Rush, just send me an email and I will make it happen. I'll include the final video in the email so you could take a look at how it came out, and hopefully this inspired you to, think about creating your own micro lectures, because they're the hot new thing in educational theory, and I would hope that people would start kind of moving to there instead of uploading your hour-long lectures into Canvas, just because research shows it's in the best interest of the students. All right, thanks everybody, and I will see you around.